Hey, friends, I hope that 2021 is going well for you. It's hard to believe it's almost March. January and February are just about behind us. And I want to flash back to a discussion I had with you at New Year's called going macro. I wanted to go macro with my faith in 2021. And I talked about not getting caught up in the micro, in the minutia of political news, debates over COVID and masking, and all the hyper debates going on in culture that get us sideways with each other. And there's so much going on that's micro, and I want to step back and be more macro. And so I want to share with you a book, and I don't think I've ever recommended a book like this in the past, but it just hit me at the right time because it gave me some macro perspective. It's this book called The Harbinger by Jonathan Cahn, The Harbinger II. It's the second book. He actually has a Harbinger one. But in a nutshell, I've read one of his books many, many, many years ago, and had forgotten how great of a writer he is. But I want to share four reasons why this was helpful to me and why I recommend it. Why it's a good macro read and will help you get macro. What he talks about is the basically America losing her superpower nation status. And I think that's and he does so from a biblical perspective. And here's four things that I took away from it. Number one, this is not a political rant. It's refreshing to me how, as an author, he's able to build this case without politics. He actually goes back several administrations, 30, 40, 50 years, to show how various decision points in American government in America have shifted our nation away from God's favor and more toward his judgment. It helps to get our eyes off of the past 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and see the past 30, 40, 50. And actually, he goes 200, 300, 400, 500 years back, deeper into pre-American history to build this case that I think is super compelling. So it's not a political rant. Number two, he does some amazing narrative of explaining events like 9/11 terrorist attacks and COVID-19. Those are the two big ones that he really spends time talking about, how they represent warning shots being fired at America. I don't want to blow the thunder of this book because he makes revealing connections all throughout. But one of the interesting ones is his explanation on why COVID-19, why that virus is one that doesn't impact children, but it is so deadly to adults and older adults. And it's a stunning aha. I don't want to tell you what it is, but I just found it very compelling. And so I think we need to be paying attention to these macro events. I think COVID-19 is a macro event that needs to be understood just from a macro perspective, meaning that this is a virus that has the whole world's attention and that God's got everybody's attention. That you've heard me talk about that in the past. But anyway, this book does speak to a lot to 9/11, the terrorist attacks from 20 years ago, and then updates it through the recent attacks through COVID-19. So I think that's got me on a macro focus. Number three, this book is very biblical, and it's not it's a fiction story of how it's written because it's very engaging. It's a bestseller. All his books are New York Times bestsellers, but he's extremely biblical in his connections. He's very careful. Let me make this clarification. America is not Israel. So the covenant with Israel is not a covenant that's just automatically transferred to other nations. So I recognize that. At the same time, he's showing that a people group in America, like America, a nation, can put themselves in position to experience God's unique blessings, and can also put themselves in position to experience his direct judgment and direct wrath. And he does that in a very winsome and what I think biblical way without violating any major, theological errors. I think it's very solid. I think, and this brings me to the fourth thing about the author. He's a Messianic Jew who understands intimately Jewish history and, of course, biblical history. He is, I'm going to say, a modern day prophet. Nothing like the prophets in the Bible that have the inspired authority to speak for God. But as far as what a modern day prophet will be, I would say that Jonathan Cahn is certainly one. When you start reading his stuff, you will, I think, see the same thing. At the same time, God positioned him to be in the publishing world today as a best-selling author. He uses a very engaging fiction writing style to give very, very short chapters, entertaining writing, and stunning revelations. I've read this book, I left having my macro vision enlightened, on alert, and again, just more out of the micro. So that's again, the Harbinger II. Get it, read it, send me an email and a note if you read it, what you thought of it. It was helpful for me. I read it really quickly, as I do with books a lot. So I'm going to go back and read it more slowly because I want to pay closer attention to some of the things I read through in sort of a warp speed manner. Okay. Have a great year. Stay macro. And thanks for checking in.